Linda Gottfredson's theory of circumscription and compromise is often broken down into two main phases. The first involves ruling out jobs that the person finds unacceptable based on gender, stereotypes, and social class. This is called circumscription. The second phase, called compromise, involves finding a career path that is both acceptable and realistic. Overall, this is a theory of how children come to recognize or fail to recognize the career choices that they have as they age. That was a very brief overview of the theory of circumscription and compromise, which we're going to talk in more detail about next. But first, my name is Keegan. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I make videos like this to help you learn more about psychology, counseling, and mental health in general. Broadly, Gottfredson believes that we categorize occupations into categories based on gender and the level of social prestige each career has, and that we all share stereotypes of workers in certain occupations. The theory states that we all complete a matching process. Through this, we gain more awareness of our interests, goals, the skills we have, our abilities, and the temperament we have as a person. Then we try to find a job that aligns with these factors. However, the theory also recognizes that many people do not find jobs that align with them, and that in some cases, people are even forced into the careers that they choose. Gottfredson also states that there are 4 developmental processes that must occur. The first is cognitive growth. Simply, this recognizes that as a child learns and grows, they will see the world of work in increasingly complex ways. Second, the theory considers us to be active in our own self-creation. Personal roles in this. The theory notes that genetics and our environment also contribute. This results in each person being unique even compared to their own siblings. Next, we're going to talk about the third process, which is circumscription, which is part of where this theory gets its name and something that we've touched on briefly already. However, we're going to go into more detail here as this process actually has 4 stages within it. In general though, circumscription is about removing occupations that do not fit us and our ideas of ourselves. This is then fine-tuned through these 4 stages. The 4 stages are something that Gottfredson believes every child will progress through, but she believes that they will go through this at their own pace. That said, keep in mind that as I list ages for each of these stages, these ages are only approximate. Gottfredson also believed that the stages can overlap to some degree. Stage 1 is orientation to size and power. This stage takes place from ages 3 to 5. During this stage, children are moving away from magical ways of thinking. As such, they are starting to categorize people into broad categories. These might be big or little or weak or powerful. This stage is also when children become more aware that adults have jobs and that they at one point will become an adult and that they will have to get a job of their own. Orientation to sex roles is the second stage. This stage takes place from approximately age 6 to age 8. At this point, children are beginning to think in more concrete terms. They're continuing to recognize more occupations and starting to make simple distinctions. Their awareness of occupations that they're engaging with is increasing, such as an occupation like a teacher. They're also becoming more aware of occupations that may stand out to them in some way. This might include occupations that have a specific uniform that makes them distinct, or occupations that involve something like a big truck that makes it stand out in some way. At the second stage, their thinking is also becoming more dichotomous and rigid. Gottfredson believed that at this point, children are beginning to separate occupations into categories for men and women. At the same time, they're being subtly pointed toward jobs that match their gender and subtly pointed away from jobs that don't. The third stage is orientation to social valuation. This occurs from around ages 9 to 13. As the child ages, they're continuing to recognize more occupations, and their awareness of social hierarchies and class are expanding. The child is also recognizing more factors that signify social class, such as a person's clothing, speech, and behavior. At the same time, their categories for occupations are expanding. Not only are they putting jobs into categories for men and women, they are also factoring in the level of prestige for jobs as well. Likewise, the child is gaining awareness that when they're an adult and choose a job, this job will be perceived by others in one way or another. As a result, by the end of the third stage, the child will have eliminated many jobs for themselves. Although not necessarily on a conscious level, they will have cut out jobs that are socially too low ranking and occupations they feel are too difficult to attain. At this point, potential jobs that remain are said to be in the social space, and an ideal job for them holds the space of idealistic aspiration. Finally, the fourth stage is orientation to internal unique self. This stage starts around age 14. During this stage, the person is beginning to sort through occupations more consciously. They are also better understanding their abilities, interests, and values. and putting these together with potential occupations. In the fourth stage, the person is also starting to recognize and understand other factors that may contribute to a job choice. The theory states that girls will often become more aware of and concerned about the work-life balance a job offers, as well as how this occupation may or may not contribute to their ability to care for their family. For boys, the theory says that they will often be weighing things like how a job might be able to help them support their family. Holland's typology of personality and work can be used to depict how a person might be thinking about their job at this point. That said, it should be noted that they are not necessarily categorizing their occupations into Holland's personality and work typologies in the way that he has them laid out. Either way, if you want to learn more about Holland's types, check out my video on the topic. So that's a quick overview of the circumscription phase. Next, we're going to talk about the last phase, which is compromise. But first, if you're enjoying this video and finding it helpful, please help me out by giving it a like and subscribing. Like I said, the last phase is compromise. At this point, the person is more actively determining what occupations might be interesting to them, as well as how accessible and reasonable this occupation is. Gottfredson also notes 3 components that often factor into this phase. The first is that people tend to only make decisions when they have to, meaning this phase is something people will only typically do when they have to find a job. It's not something that they're going to necessarily do when they're investigating a career path. She also notes that people often only pursue more information related to their most interesting career paths. Additionally, their information tends to be limited when they do this because they're usually gathering information from friends and family. Second, she notes that people who are well connected tend to get more information on a wider variety of jobs. She also notes that people who are more active consumers will typically get more information than those who are passive. Those who are more active consumers also tend to be put into more situations where they can find more jobs and be exposed to more experiences that might be helpful for them to gain needed experience. Third, she notes that when people can't find a job that matches their sex type, prestige level, or interests, they tend to prioritize the jobs that match their gender role. When someone is faced with occupations that equally fit their sex role, they will most often then prioritize the level of prestige that the job would give them. If both the sex type and the level of prestige are considered somewhat acceptable to the person, they will then try to find a job that is a good fit for their interests. So this has been a broad overview of Gottfredson's theory of circumscription and compromise. While you're here, make sure that you check out some of the other videos on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.